Hey, Natu here. Today I'm going to do the next part on what if Deku had a leveling system. I was looking at it and yeah, it's been almost 2 weeks since I've made the last one. I'm really sorry about that. But yeah, I was kind of just doing the others for a bit since yeah, only 7 what ifs, but at the same time I can't do them all day because I have some stuff to do, as well as finally being able to sleep for more than 8 hours, which I freaking love. Since normally, no matter what was happening to me, I was only sleeping for like 6 or 7 hours at max. Sometimes a lot less than that, no matter when I went to sleep. So it was kind of annoying. Mostly when you think that the human inner clock actually goes in a 25 hours loop instead of what we have for a day. So yeah, kind of annoying. Oh yeah, if you didn't know that, if you remove any time of sense of time from outside, like clocks, the sun, anything like that, um, the human body actually sleeps for around 8.5 hours and then pass the rest of the 25 hours awake, then goes to sleep. So if you're asking yourself why you're too awake when you're supposed to go to sleep to have your 8 hours of sleep, it's because your inner clock actually works for is trying to keep you awake a little longer. We've lived our whole life basically doing it in a certain way that our body is kind of used to it, but like after 2 or 3 weeks of being completely isolated from anything that shows you what time it is, your body actually starts going back to that. So, yeah. Sorry for talking about something completely unrelated, but yeah, so part night of leveling Deku. In the last part, he left the Beastman Kingdom with 222 years of age, 4 of the 21 books, and he was going to a human city. I just have to check something. Okay, 1107 for the level. In my notes, it looked like an H, so it was kind of weird. H07. Like, what? No, it's 1107 year level, 222 years of age, and 4 out of 21 books. So, to go to the human city, normally he tries to train and stuff like that on the way, but he doesn't want to go back through the forest. So he decided that he was going to go Sky Dragon Force, the wind element, and just kind of fly over it all, all the way above it, and when he passes it, just walks all, all the way to the human city, well, kingdom. So he basically does that. It doesn't take him that long, since flying basically allows him to go a lot faster. So he basically does it in less than a day, basically flying at the fastest speed he can, which is really fast. So arriving back on the other side, someone that saw him when he entered basically just sees him get down from the sky, and he asks him, "Why did you pass through the forest if you could fly?" which Deku just said to test myself. And then the guy said, okay, but why did you just lie this time? And Deku said, because I had a lot of things to do there, but I still have time, had time, so I decided to do it, and once was enough. I'm stronger than anything in there, but it's still creepy as hell, so yeah, no. Well, no, he doesn't say he's stronger than everything, but he says that he can beat a lot of things in there, but that uh, some of his magic that he is the best with would actually or be totally ineffective because of where it is, or basically destroy the entire forest. So he kind of can't. He says bye. The guy just tells him that next time he passes, just do that instead of going through it. Which Deku says, I know, and basically starts going. So, um, on if he goes by walking speed, to get to the human village, kingdom, it basically takes about a week and a half. He is not going to run all the way there, which would actually make it about 3 times less, but mostly because of his speed. Um, so, yeah. Also, reason why it takes 3 whole days is actually because he has passed or above a mountain range, or straight through a freaking mountain with caverns and all caves and stuff like that. I'm going to say it outright. He's going to go through it because the way that mountain is basically, how can I say it? Just like the um, Beastman Kingdom was surrounded by the sea and by a forest. The well, kind of different, but still, the Human Kingdom is actually in the middle of basically a circular mountain range, which basically is just kind of a circle around the entire kingdom. That's a lot of mountain. And those mountains are made of a huge amount of metal. Well, they have a huge amount of metals that basically attracts electricity like a magnet attracts silver dust, metal dust. So, a lot. So basically the whole top of the mountain range is basically a thunderstorm storm almost 24/7, which he is immune to it, but he doesn't want to go through that. And in the caves, there's basically monsters, bats. It's a massive maze as well. That not all path takes you to an exit. A lot of them also have traps and stuff like that. Not because of humans, but because of monsters that hunts there. So not complicated traps. Well, some monsters are intelligent compared to in my RPG, My Hero Academia. Monsters, well, like real monsters in this one, some do have intelligence. Some are pretty intelligent, even, but normally not to the point of a human or other creatures over that. Some do have it above them, but only certain species. So yeah, he decides to go through that. When he's about to get to it, which is basically about a week after, Well, just before that, 5 days later, basically. The reason it takes so long to actually get to the village is mostly because of the inside of the caves. Because some paths go up, some paths go down, some basically go around and around going up and stuff like that. Some paths are practically straight up all the way through the mountain, but there's not a lot of them, and on most paths, if you go straight for too long, basically go back the way you came and do it fast. So that's basically what they tell you. Because there's no map to go through it, it's almost impossible to actually do that. And those that actually try to do maps to go through them often end up being dead and only find the remain of them, and the maps aren't kind of readable anymore. Or because of blood or stuff like that, basically. So it's kind of hard. So before entering, basically, there is a small merchants, well, a small group of merchants, basically giving, well, not giving, but selling lanterns, grease, and stuff like that. Um, Normal grease, a special grease from a specific piece that basically a drop of that can basically last you for days almost, which cost a massive amount, even though Deku could easily buy it. Basically, a drop cost you like. I don't think I ever went in on what the money system was in this. I don't think so. Basically, there's different types of coins that range from copper, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and there's another one above that that's basically just diamond, kind of a coin of diamond. Those are extremely hard to get, and basically to um the animation the copper one. Well, no, I'm going to say it from the top. One diamond coin equals about 1,000 gold ones. Deku has some of those, in fact, which is pretty impressive. Well, kings and queens have a lot of them, but it's still impressive when you just see a guy walking around and he has those. So yeah, one diamond coin equal 100 gold coins. Platinum coins, I mean. One platinum is 100 gold. 100 gold, 100, once gold, 100 silver, 1 silver, 100 bronze, 100, 1 bronze equal 100 copper. So basically, if you have 100 copper, you can use it to buy something that costs 1 bronze. So golds are already extremely rare. Platinum, I mean, are kind of rare. Basically, think of it as yens. Something cost a lot of yens, basically, and kind of hard to get. So, 1 copper is 1 yen. 1 bronze is 100 yen. And continue like that, and you basically get what a diamond equals, which is humongous at that point. But yeah, basically for um, a small vial of that special grease, basically costs you about 2-3 golds, which is huge. And Deku knows that. He doesn't need one anyway, but he's still listening to them. Then they say that they also have a magic kind of grease that's less efficient, but the way it works is actually that as long as you have some in your vial, it will continue multiplying in that vial. It only costs 1 gold, but it actually burns faster than normal grease. So it's kind of useless unless you buy a lot of it. Well, no, actually, it has around the same amount as a normal grease. I say 1 gold, but for the special grease, it's a small vial that's basically like 20 or 30 drops in it. For the magic one, it's not actually a small vial, but actually a big bottle, basically, that has like 2 gallons in it, so you have a lot for it. So yeah, 1 gold for that. While the normal one is like 1 bronze for like half a gallon. So it doesn't pay that much for it, but it's actually because that kind can literally be made with magic, and they have the magic to do it, so Deku could probably, well, actually, I think I would make it so that he already has that. So he could literally just buy a lantern and be on with it. Which he basically does, just kind of make them think. Basically, he gives, well, the lanterns are actually 50 bronze for one. So if you want to, you give a silver. Um, so yeah, basically he took one of the I just have torch in my head. I think that's what I was calling them, but lantern. Thank you. He buys one lantern, and then he buys the 2 gallons of magic grease. They ask him if he needs anything else, since they do have other things. He just asks for books, which they say that they have some, but not that much. He can look around in them, and what he finds is basically a fairy tale that he never read. He decides to buy it. He has the money anyway. Basically, there's a lock on it, and they say that they never opened it since they don't have the key, but he bought it anyway. Reason for that is basically that if he wants to, he can break it, probably. So he leaves with it, and while inside the cave, he actually didn't even use the grease or the lantern. He was basically using his fire magic to make a flame. Just to kind of act, well, when he entered, he basically did that to make them think that he was using the lantern. A bit later, when he was past the point where he would need that, he changed to light magic and basically just made balls of light go in front of him and behind him, and was basically looking through them to see what was happening. Let's say about an hour after starting to walk, he decided to stop at some point and sit down. He basically made sure that everything around him was safe, and then encased himself in dirt with a small hole to basically make sure that air could pass in. And then he started looking at the book. Also, he has a small light above the dome he made that basically doesn't really, well, It's more like a black light, something like that he created, kind of. It's dark, well, shadow magic or darkness magic around the ball of light that he can see through it, but no light can escape it. So he sees through it if something like that produces light actually comes towards him. He doesn't see anything, but yeah. So he goes and start trying to see if he can just open it by lockpicking it, and he's not able to. It's as if it doesn't even have anything inside of the lock. He decides to make a small ball of light and basically send it inside to see what he can see, and he doesn't see anything in it. Basically, he just sees something that, oh, you just need that form, it enters it, and it kind of, and you turn it. So he basically made that with metal magic, basically forming the key of that size and form, places it in it, tries to twist, and it doesn't work. He decides to try and break it instead. With his strength, it should be easy, and it's not moving. He tries to burn that piece off by being careful. It's not even melting. He tried to freeze it, heat it, freeze it, and continuing like that, basically break it. Nothing. The frost didn't do anything, the fire wasn't even making it hotter. After a while, he decided to use appraisal magic to basically see what it is. And he sees that there's a massive enchantment on it. Something that he never even seen. As if nobody wanted the fairy tale to be read. Which is weird, because why would you do that? So he thinks, oh, I probably need the key or something, that specific key, but that would be weird. He decides to read the name of the fairy tale to see if he can find a clue to where it could be. Which, the name of the fairy tale is, just a sec. Okay, yeah, sorry, something just kind of happened. Okay, so the name is, well, actually, the name doesn't give him any information. It's basically the Lake of the Fairy. He decided to read whatever was on the back of it. There wasn't anything. Then he looks on the side and it looks like there's something written, but it's not visible that much. The only reason he was able to see it was because of his dragon slayer basically changing him a bit into a dragon, giving him the same capacity of vision, smell, and whatever as a dragon. And he decides to think of what it could be. And then he remembers a small trick from his world. And he places a flame on it, which actually reveals what it is. It is called Key to the Heart. Well, what is written is Key to the Heart. Blood of the Fallen. Well, Blood of the Fallen King. So, he really doesn't know what that means. But he saw that the book wasn't even burned a bit. And decided to make a flame on the entire book. And some other things appeared. Firstly, on one side, he basically saw the image of a half human, half dragon, kind of just looking a bit. Well, how can I say this? Basically, he is kind of standing. Half of his body is dragon, the other half is human, and he seemed to have a crown on his head that is broken, as well as his dragon side being completely dark and the other side being completely white. It's basically the same. Oh, also, the reason fire actually does it is not because it needs heat or something like that. Let's say like the trick with you put lemon or well, lemon juice or something like that on a paper, and then you kind of place it close to a flame or something like it. It's actually specific markings that you need a large amount of magic to actually show. He's using fire magic, the book doesn't burn, but the magic still activates everything that he's showing. So, the piece of the crown that is broken is the part where it is dragon half, and he remembers the written on the side, and he's like, fallen prince, or fallen king, I mean. The blood of a fallen king. He looks the crown that is broken, one side a dragon, and just thinks, okay, so I have to find a half human dragon. That was a previous king, and now is a fallen king, and probably give it that blood. And then just think, but the book looks old. And they said it was old. It was in their families for generation. He's probably not even around anymore. Since yes, dragon can live for practically ever if they're not killed, but he doesn't know if the guy could have been killed or something. And he doesn't even know what it could be or do. And decides to just not think about it and places it in his storage. The reason he does that is actually because he sees something coming. A light in one of the tunnels that are coming, well, that are opposite from where he was coming. And he basically placed himself a mental compass, as well as using magic to do it, where basically he sees the start of where he comes from, and basically it's always pointing toward that. And the tunnel is basically coming from the opposite of that, so the end of the mountain. But he doesn't know what it is, so he leaves it all like that with the cover over him and looks at what will happen. He basically placed himself on a wall to basically make it look as if nothing had changed. Basically, he made a hole, placed himself in, placed the wall with a hole in it, and the small um, dark light ball over where the hole was. After a bit, the thing that actually was making the light appeared, and it's not a monster, it's a group of kids. But they're not talking. He looks at them correctly and they look weird. It's as if they didn't, they weren't actually alive. He didn't know what it was about them. All he knows is that they looked up to where the dark light was, which he was actually looking with that, and basically just left it there. Then one of the kids started opening its mouth, and a scream started coming out of it. Something unhuman. He really didn't know what was happening, The other two started doing the exact same thing, and with all he knew, he just left it there because, okay, if I make it go away, they're probably going to start thinking that something's around or something. So he decided to actually make it move and make it go by the exact same way that they were coming from, basically making his light all dark light, going straight through it. And they basically started following it. He was looking through the hole and was seeing kind of a little bit, but not a lot. Reason for that is that all of those kids had torches with them, and when they left after the dark light, they actually dropped them, and they're just following it through the dark. Wait, just from that he knew, okay, yeah, something's wrong. And after a bit, he started hearing something as if something big was running. Something that was on four legs. He kept looking, and after a bit, he basically saw a big, and I really mean big ass lizard, just came right through it and basically, um, while going through, basically putting down all three of the torches, but he knew he was going in the same direction. You can see with the dark light, even though it's in the dark, basically, kind of like if a wall's coming, you know it's there and stuff. And he was basically just kind of going through the entire tunnel, basically passing from different holes and going. And he wasn't coming out of where he was hidden. Just because he didn't know what to expect. He didn't know what level it was, he didn't know if it was stronger than him. After a bit, he reached a dead end, which, getting there, the kids were still following it. Um, After a bit of the kid just screaming at it, well, after like a second or two, Deku reversed the way by which the light was coming from, started going back through the tunnel, trying to get to another hole and make it go through there. But the monster was a lot faster than what he thought, and basically all he was able to see was the monster arriving and basically open his jaw with massive amount of teeth. The kids were behind it, and since he sees it 360 vision, he basically saw the kid just kind of looking at it, the monster eating it, and that's it. As if the magic itself was basically sucked out of it. He got scared for a bit because he has a lot of magic, and if that monster is feeding on that, and then he remembered his bracelets. He's not producing any magic thanks to that. And he didn't see any eyes on the monsters. Or on the monster and the kids. Well, the kids did have eyes, but they were completely white. As if they were completely blind except for light or magic. What they were doing was basically that. They see magic. And he's trying to think of why would those kids help that monster? And then he realized there's a human kingdom not far away outside of it. If those kids has a bit have had a bit of magic in them, or had item with magic, and that monster is hunting magic, if he's not eating meat, he doesn't know it, but he's thinking if he eats meat, the kid would be dead, and he would have eaten them. But what if he doesn't eat meat? He still kills them by eating them. What happens with the corpse afterward? And so he decided to send a massive amount of black lights. As many as possible. Well, not black lights, just lights this time. He basically placed his hand on the hole and started sending a massive amount of them, basically sending thousands, stopped doing it and sending them in every holes and tunnels that he could. Basically seeing exactly everything, like small screens all over his what he could see, but with the capacity to actually memorize everything that he's seeing. And while doing that, he sees a massive amount of those, as well as seeing, well, no, not a massive amount, but basically, like, from what he saw like 10 of them that ate his light ball. He saw multiple different types of monsters, bear looking ones, giant spider like monsters. He saw like 4 or 5 minotaurs and stuff like that. And then with one of his light ball, he was able to reach the outside. The problem was that all of his light balls were going a lot faster than what he can move. And that one specific ball took him over 8 hours to get there. After a while, a lot more balls started getting to exits and stuff like that. And every time they were getting there, he was basically just making them go up like high enough for the monsters not to get them, basically. Or at least he hopes. So that if they actually follow the balls to get out, he hopes they don't eat it. He's able to see the kingdom at around 20 or so kilometers further. And he does see a massive, like, well, he sees that the moon is actually not, well, it's there, but it's not that big, so there's no light really. So if he comes out of it, he cannot use magic. He cannot actually run that fast to try and get there, because if he runs too fast, he might do noise, which will attract um, other monsters. And most of what he uses to attack right now is in his storage, which he doesn't know if it actually acts as magic, which would probably attract the monsters, since he saw that the moment he was letting them go, the monsters were actually trying to get to them without even being close to them, as well as seeing a massive amount of kids, adolescents, some adults that were kind of not that strong. He saw one man in armor that seemed to be in the same way and basically screamed the same way. Like in total, he saw like 200 kids. And while doing that, he also made a mental map of everything. And I really do mean everything in 3D with the exact measurements. And after the 8 hours, he was still sending some of the balls around. And it was basically making the entire round about of the mountain range. He basically stayed in his hole for like almost 24 hours, like 20 hours. And he knew that the fastest way to get there, because he was asking himself, why didn't the first time I used magic did they not come running? And then he thought they were too far away. So if he so he decided to think, how can I actually send all of those things as far away as possible? Send them on the other side of the mountain. How do you do that? Magic. A whole lot of it. He basically started looking in the map everywhere that he saw those monsters. He was sure that there were probably more of those, since, well, he saw 10 of them, and he did every single caverns all the way to where he is right now. Basically, if one of his balls was reaching a point where there were more than one path, he was basically just multiplying it. And his reach is really big, but he's getting to his limits. So, and he knows he didn't even do half of the mountain yet, or mountain range yet. So, he doesn't know how fast they can go at at most, well, at the biggest speed that they have. And there must be more later that way. So he doesn't want to just stay there until a group of adventurers come there, because he's probably stronger than them anyway. As well as his magic is starting to get a little thin, I should say, compared to what he's used to. What do I mean by this is that thousands of small ball of lights for 20 hours straight, he's not letting himself time to recover magic. He's just using it. It's kind of problematic at this point. Then he remembers the oil, well, grease that he bought. It's magical. What if he just goes straight for that tunnel while leaving basically while leaving a big amount of grease, well, magic grease there, basically on the fastest way that he can go out. There was a monster there. Problem is, it's in his storage. So if he opens it, will the monster start coming? Because they don't have eyes, they need the kid to see, but they must also be able to hunt by themselves. So, or they can hear stuff, which is extremely likely what he's thinking. Or they can smell magic. So he decides to test it. Well, no, to take a chance. Opens his storage, take out the magic oil, well, grease. He looks at the hole and basically just at the small gap he has in the rock to see, and basically just thinks, I have to get out of here, but any noise and any magic might attract them. And he doesn't know how close they are now to him. So what he decides to do is actually to use magic to deconstruct them, destroy it, empties the entire bottle except some drops, hoping that it would recover anyway, and basically starts running in the right direction. He also made a lot of noise while using the magic, basically breaking the rock, basically to make sure that they're attracted to that place. Placed the um, bottle in his storage magic, like not his storage, but the storage magic that actually time passes in it to make the grace recover. Well, yeah, recover. And he was running fast and was hoping that the monsters weren't in his path because a lot of those tunnels were basically getting back to each other, and yeah, so he was hoping. And he decided that since he doesn't need magic to run, he just needs his stamina. He basically took some stamina potions out that don't work from magic, and every time he was starting to be exhausted, he was taking another one, and another one, and another one. And he ran straight for about 4 days, just running at it. He found out also from the map that he made while using the magic lights that from where he started, there was actually a path that was like 2 days long only, almost well, a little more than that, but like just not 3 days, but not only 2 days, kind of. So about 60 hours. No, wait. About 70 hours. So 2 hours before it would have made 3 days, basically. And he was just beating himself because, yeah, he could have just done that from the start and it would have been all easy. Because he really doesn't know what those monsters are capable of. Which he's gonna learn in the city, well, kingdom. While running, um, he does hear the scream starting to get in behind him, but still far away. And he keeps just running straight. And after the full time, he finally got out. He looked up, and the sun was starting to raise over the mountain range, and he was happy. He started going for the city, and while going there, he basically met 2 or 3 guards, basically, that were going there. He said hi and stuff, and they asked him if he knew about some lights that were over the caves because it was weird. It was seeable during the night for one day, and then he just said, "Oh, that was me." Which they asked him what what it was actually, and he said it was magic. They said, "Oh, did you see the monsters in there?" Blah blah blah. Which he said, "Yeah," and they said, and one of the guards basically just said, "Those little the those little rascals are freaking annoying. They're unable to kill anything except childrens or people that are already dead practically, and basically just sucks magic out of things." Which, hearing that, he's basically like, wait, they're not strong? Which the guard basically says, oh, not at all. Actually, they're not dangerous. to an adult or anyone that's basically with a defense of over 200,000. They're basically not even able to harm you at that point, which Deku is a lot higher than that. And he was just basically thinking, wait, I was afraid for nothing? Which the guard says then, you could be afraid of them for two reasons. First, they take all of your magic away for a long amount of time. When she asks what does he mean? And one of the guard basically says, oh, well, the bite of those monsters, even if it doesn't go through your skin, it starts sucking your magic out of you. And if they leave you with no magic in the end, it they actually put in you, even if they're not able to pass through your skin, a sort of toxin that basically makes it so that you cannot use magic. Humans don't actually have any magic in them except for some of them, so it's not really that bad, but we still can't use magic anyway afterward because magic can enter our body, which Deku's body can actually produce magic on its own, but still, apart from those, if they would be able to suck all of his magic out, for some amount of time, depending on how big your magic reserve is, which Deku is huge, the bigger your magic limit, the longer it's going to take. So he's still happy for that thing. So they ask him how long did it take you to go to get here. He said 4 days, if I don't count the 3 days I've passed in it before that. Which they're kind of just asking him, so what did you eat while you were in there? You don't seem to have a lot of things anymore. Which he said he was okay, but he was still scared because he didn't know anything about those. Which the guard basically said, yeah, probably because they're nowhere anywhere else in the world. It was actually because of an accidental creation. It's actually an accidental creation from a magician that tried to attack us. He tried to summon different monsters, instead trying to summon them all at once. Basically created around 40 of those. Sorry. Gentleless, and they can reproduce just naturally. If for some reason they just kind of barf up eggs after enough magic. They're super easy to kill, and it's all. It's actually the only thing that's scary about them is not knowing what they are. Which Deku just says, why don't you kill them all? Which the guard says, because we tried already. They've been there for 10 years only, but still, they're problematic. The eggs that they spit out looks basically exactly like stone, and before doing them, they basically dig a hole exactly the same shape, place it there, and until it opens, it's actually as hard as the wall itself. So unless we destroy the entire mountains, we won't get rid of them for a while. Unless we send a huge amount of explorers in it every time they see one to kill it. And make sure it's not able to feed on other monsters for magic. Which Deku's basically just thinking, oh shit. They ask him if he wants to help to get to the city, well, the kingdom, which he says he's going to be fine. Just really angry that he didn't even try to kill them, just because he didn't know at all what they were. since anything that he fought, he actually knew what they were. But he was told that on this continent, some monsters are actually stronger than a lot of things and aren't really that known. Like, even some dragons said that some monsters that are pretty small can kill them. And on other continents, it gets even worse at some point. So he was kind of afraid of them for nothing, for what they were, but in itself, he had a good reason. When he got to the kingdom, first thing he saw was that there wasn't a lot of magic around. Like, the rare magic items were like placed in a way that even if the monsters tried to get out of the caves to come and try to get them, they wouldn't be able to get to it because basically it's placed on towers outside of the cities, and when they come out to try and eat them while it's night time, they basically just get killed automatically. So it's basically just a trap to do that. When entering the city or kingdom, yeah, I always say that. I should stop. But yeah, he entered that, and he looks human. He looks like a human kid, to be honest. The only reason he does, everyone knows he's not, is because of the ears. Which he had a cape, or not a cape, but a um, basically he just had something to cover his head. For some reason, I'm not able to think of the name for it. Well, the word for it. But yeah, basically they don't see it. The only reason he has it on is because it's kind of part of what he actually used normally to when he goes around. Here, there's only one library, and it's not that big, actually. It's rather small, in fact. There's like 1,000 book, 1,050 at max. And he already read almost all of them, basically. The only thing new he found was a book called, um, well, the Blood of the Fallen King, which he went and asked what it was, and they basically said that they don't know. It's locked by a weird by a weird lock that's unbreakable. They can't even break the book itself, and he basically just thinks they don't have magic here because he saw the lock and stuff. He asked if they knew where he could probably find the key, and they just said, as well, the person just said, as the king, he might be the only one that would actually know that. So, yeah, basically going to the castle, basically to ask the king. He kind of hid it a bit and just kind of used flames on it to basically see if there's anything written on it. And yes, just like for the other one, there's things written on it. On the side, what is marked is the spirit key, blood of the dragon. On the back, all he sees is a picture of a dragon with a man that is half dragon. Weird coincidence, right? Not really. So he decides to put it in his storage with that, as well as look at his magic storage for the magic oil. And after all the time that he was running, it was almost full. So he knew he could make it go low and still recharge it. So he was fine with that. Basically, that's what they're using actually. Basically, they have files of that. Um, they basically open it some at different times because, well, the fire that come out of it basically unleash magic at the same time. So that's basically what they're using to make the monsters come out. But yeah, he gets to the castle. He asks if he can speak to the king because he wants to ask about something specific. They tell him to go right away. It's weird that they're so trusting. When he arrives in front of the king, he gets why they're not afraid of anything. He has to have dragon guards with him. Well, Dragonoid's guard. Not the monster, but the actual humanoid species. And those are said to be extremely strong and to be able to fight against dragon easily. So he gets where they're not afraid. When he enters, well, the only reason he knew that they were though, well, that's even because of the armor is because of the huge amount of magic they were making. So yeah, he basically started approaching him, bowed down. The king asked his name, and Deku took off what he was covering his head with, and said, "My name is Izuku Midoriya, king of..." I never gave a name, or I don't remember it. And the king was surprised to see him, and asked him what was bringing him here, mostly thinking that Izuku was weaker, and asked how he even got here because of how dangerous the continent is, blah blah blah, and Deku just said, "It's not that dangerous, to be honest. Well, for me at least." Which the king said, "But you come from the weakest continent. Shouldn't you be a little under um, level, I should say?" Which Izuku just says, "No. I was not normal at birth, and my power keep rising. I'm level 1107." Which the king was basically just kind of baffled a bit and said, "What's your age? I thought you weren't that old for a half-elf." And he says 222, but I trained with dragon for a long amount of time. Which the king basically just kind of went, "Oh shit, okay." The two dragons basically, well, Deku was starting to approach the king. The two dragonoids basically blocked the way, and he basically looked at them and just kind of sent a draconic aura around himself. Basically took off his bracelets, and basically the aura around him basically exploded, and they kind of got scared a bit. He placed them back and just said, "Don't worry, I'm just showing you that I'm strong." Which one of them says, "That's what we're afraid of." Which he says, "Don't worry, the only reason I'm here is actually to ask for three things." Which the king asks, well, tells him to ask away. And Deku says that he wants to know about a specific book, one of the 21 books that he's looking for, basically taking out the four others, and asking the king if he could get the fifth one, the one that he has. And The king asked him, "Why should I trust you? For all I know, you could have stolen them. You just told us that you were strong. You could have done it easily." And then Deku said, "Well, look at which books they are, and try to tell me where that would work out." Which he asks what he means, and he basically tells them where the books come from, and he kind of reacts weird a bit, because what he knew of the other kings and queens is that they were all not trusting of anyone they didn't know. Even if it was another king or queen, they needed to pass a long amount of time, so if they were giving it to him, because for two of them, the books are well guarded, or even untraceable at almost. Mostly for the guy, just because just before the dragon caves. So yeah, he knew that, or he was extremely good at looking for them, or he was given the book, and he didn't want to take chance for his entire kingdom to be destroyed. So he basically just gave him the books, the book. Then Deku showed the two other books, the fairy tale one, well, the fairy tale, and the fallen, the blood of the fallen king book, and he asked if he knows anything about those. And yes, actually, he knows about them. He heard a story from his grandmother that those books were created by one person, a fallen dragon king, well, half dragon king to be exact. Um, he made three books that required key, but no one was able to know where those key were because he never made them. Everyone knows that from those three books, there is a huge amount of, firstly, magic in them, but it's not coming out of it. There's a huge enchantment on it that also, for some reason, isn't expelling any magic. And that, from all they know, the first book didn't know. Um, well, what they knew is that it was given to an old friend of the person who did it. The second one was actually um, giving given to this kingdom, and the last one was hidden in the mountains, which Deku basically thought, wait, which mountains? And he basically said, "Oh, the mountains around this place." It's supposed. Well, there's a riddle to find where it is. Above the highest, but below the lowest. The thunder do not strike it, but everything else will touch it. Yeah, even I don't know what that is. Actually, that's what's given to me by Gray, my friend. Actually, he told I told him where I wanted to put it, and he told me that. And Deku understood. He basically explained it to me right after. Um, Basically, Deku listened to it, and above the highest, but below the lowest. Some mountains, well, the highest mountain doesn't reach the lowest. No, the highest. Yeah, that's it. the highest mountain, doesn't reach the lowest clouds, and for some reason that peak, well, from what he was seeing, wasn't being touched by any lightning. And he just thought everything else does. But what is everything else? And so he decided to just say thank you to the king and go to that place. Because basically he was able to see that he saw that point, the highest mountain. And on that mountain, there was no lightning striking the ground. So he just started flying and was being struck by lightning, didn't feel it. Got to the highest point, which wasn't actually a strike, well, was basically like a. It looked like a plateau more once you get to the top, where it's basically completely flat all the way. It's about a diameter of like 200 meter in total. He looked around, didn't see that much, but he was trying to think, what is everything else that's touching it? And then he just remembered to open to show the other book's markings, you need magic. Lightning doesn't strike it, but everything else does. He has access to every type of elemental magic. Lightning is basically its own element, and so he decided to use every other element of magic at once and basically place it on the whole top of it to try and see where it is. Because above the highest, so he's thinking it's just kind of hidden on the top of it, but below the lowest, so below the clouds. And he basically just kind of made a tornado of every element at once. Which, after a bit of that, he closed it. Well, ended it. And something did show up. But he didn't know what the hell that was. Because there was fire, metal, lava, and other stuff like that. But a tree grew in the middle of it. He didn't know at all what that was about. Thinking he probably put a little bit too much um, plant magic in it. He went to see it, and he saw that the tree wasn't normal that much. In- Instead of what you normally hear when you knock on it, it basically felt hollow. So what does he do? He basically just cut it. And when he struck the first time, he basically hit something that stopped him dead in his track. He then went a bit higher than that, he passed right through it, and the tree wasn't, well, it was hollow, but there was a box in it. Deku took it out, and in the box, there was the book. He looked at it, and weird. There's nothing on it. There's no um, markings. There's nothing written, and there's no place where you could place a key in it. You can just open it, but it won't. He decides to do what he did with the other books and place fire on it. Not working. he was exhausted and decided to go back to the village to sleep a bit. He started leaving the place, and after a bit, he looked back, and thunder was actually hitting the place where the tree was, where the book was. And in his mind, it kind of just clicked. The only thing, the only lightning he didn't use was, the only magic he didn't use was lightning, because he thought it wasn't needed. Actually, no, any types of magic would have worked. It's just that the book was repelling lightning. The only thing that never touched it. And then he used his lightning dragon slayer on it. Well, just a lightning spell, I would say mostly, but yeah. And the book kind of just opened. In it, nothing was written. It wasn't actually a book. It was more like a box, looking like a book. Inside was a small amount of blood. If you don't get where this is going, well, I'm just ending it anyway. Um, he takes that. He takes the other book out. The book that basically on the side asks for dragon blood. He places it inside of it, and it's open. The same thing for this one. A vial of blood and nothing else. He takes out the last book. He places the drop of blood in it. It opens. But this one, it does truly have pages. And the entire story is actually about the reason the kingdom is there. About why it was created in the middle of a mountain range with lightning. About why nobody there seems to have magic, and that it's actually only humans, truly. And in the end, it basically speaks about why he made the books, which was basically to make them look for them. Which he basically just thinks, yeah, well, they didn't. They found you. You gave that one to them, and they basically just left it there, even knowing the story that you left it. Basically, after saying why he did that, it was basically explaining that he was going to tell them that the books have an incredible treasure in them, that whoever finds it can keep it, blah blah blah. And in the last page, what he sees is a spell circle. Something that is actually, you make it, and to activate it, you put magic in it. It can be activated many times if you reuse magic to activate it, but that's all Deku knows. He never saw how to make one or any one of them. But he knows that he needs to put magic in it. So he does. And basically, what comes out of it is a jewel. A special jewel that basically came in a small box with a small piece of paper written on it. If you found this book, if you were able to take this, that means that you are a magic user and that you actually tried to find the books, which Deku kind of just stumbled upon the two first and just kind of went to find the last one, knowing where it might be. Um, then later on the paper, it basically explained that this stone is actually made to go with four other items: a piece of unbreakable paper, a unbreakable vial, an unbreakable pen, and lastly, weirdly, the blood of a special being. But that's all it's saying. He knew he already had the unbreakable piece of paper because basically the Beastman King told him that nothing was ever able to break it. It's basically been there for centuries, just like for this. And so he decided that, well, I don't freaking know what will happen with that. I might as well look for them. But there's no other clue for to him, so he doesn't know where to look. He goes back to the kingdom, just doesn't tell them about it, and just tell them that he's going to leave, and that the next place he's going is actually well, every other kingdom is going to be a mixed kingdom, but that's mostly a kingdom of um, elves, beastmen, mostly of the cat kind, um, and humans. So there's other species, but not really a lot. It's mostly adventurers that do go there most of the time for other species. So it's mostly humans, elves, cat beastmans, which do have an actual name for their species, but I didn't do that because basically every type of animal practically there's a demi-human, well, beastman for them, and I don't freaking want to do that much. So yeah. So basically it's those three or mixed breeds of those. And yeah, so that's the next place he's going. Except for gaining another book and that weird stone that was in the three books. There's, there's not really anything else. Which basically he didn't tell it to anyone in the kingdom except to the king, which basically told him, "Wait, you found the first book like a week, about 2 weeks ago, and you already fucking solved the entire riddle? What the hell?" Which Deku basically told them, if you were actually looking for them, you might have actually have been able to do stuff. Which he kind of just said that and left. This time not passing through the cave system, just because, yeah, fuck this. And yeah, the next kingdom is basically 2 days from there at walk, so it's really not far at all. Like, actually, they're called the Twin Kingdoms. One kingdom inside of a mountain range, the other one like uh, still a good amount of well, a good distance from it, but still really close if you're able to get out. Like if you start from outside the mountain range, it's 2 days only. If you start from the middle of the kingdom, that's a bit different. So yeah, hoped you liked it. Sorry if the riddle is really bad, but I basically told Gray that I wanted that the last book was going to be in a tree, basically a hollowed out tree that he was going to have to find. And on top of a mountain, and he basically told me, okay, this is the riddle and this is the answer. Gray, I know you're hearing this. That was freaking dumb. But yeah, still. Natsu. Natsu. Hey, can it come on? Okay, Natsu, out.